So Rick and Morty is basically started out as a short film from as a parody of Back to the Future. So that's going to be interesting to talk about. Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Movies and TVs on the Ball. My name is Steve,
And I'm Jay.
and we will be getting closer to doing John Wick Chapter 4.
Right.
But this is just another in-between episode with a show I've actually seen. I haven't seen, but I've seen like bits and pieces of it. But a show called Rick and Morty, which I actually I knew of, but this is my first time watching it. And you, Jay,
Yeah, I think I've seen most of this episodes. I'm not sure if I've seen them all, but yeah.
you've known, because I know that they're on like HBO Max or Max.
Yeah, Max now, right?
Max, yeah.
Not HBO.
Yeah, Discovery. Thanks a lot. But like, I think it's supposed to kind of play on the same words of Back to the Future, Marty and Rick and Morty, Doc and Marty.
Right. Yeah. Except what if the scientist guy was
A little bit more crazier.
crazy? Yeah, and just sort of didn't care about
The well-being of the child.
or anyone.
And so I watched it. Now I was kind of digging it. I thought it was from the get-go. It was one of those shows that I watched, and I guess what I was going to ask you, Jay, is what how did you find out about this show?
I'm not sure. I think it was just sort of on probably Adult Swim or something. Is how I
And just kind of flipping through channels, and you were like,
yeah.
found out about it, and you're
Right,
like,
yeah.
this seems pretty good. So Rick and Morty takes place in, I guess, the kind of
Some sort of like present day.
Present.
Yeah.
And it's about sort of this kid who's going to school, and it already sets up that they've known each other for a while, because it's kind of in the same way in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
We kind of understand that, because if you remember Back to the Future, the opening scene of Back to the Future, he goes to
He's already been working for the doctor, right?
well, he's been hanging out with the doctor, because he goes to the doctor's house and he knows where the key is, and
right.
And so I kind of feel like this was sort of a play on that.
Yeah, especially with how Rick's costume is very reminiscent of
Doc Brown.
Yeah, Doc Brown's.
Well, he's got the crazy hair.
The crazy hair, the lab coat.
Lab coat.
Yeah.
So this pilot this first episode was pretty good. I think the Rick and Morty's has like about 7 seasons now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's quite a few now.
And more. Let me check. They've got 7 seasons. So yeah, and I kind of can tell like this is one of the and I like how they sort of jump you right in. There's no like, "Hi Rick, I'm Morty." They've sort of like, you're hanging out, because that's the same thing with Back to the Future. And so, how many episodes have you watched? Like, have you watched enough that you can kind of?
Yeah, I think I've watched most of them. Yeah.
Okay. Because the pilot episode starts out with.
It has Rick sort of just grabbing Morty out of the bed, showing him he built a
Spaceship, yeah, which is kind of
like a junk he found in the garage.
Yeah. Which is, I felt like was really kind of really common, really had a lot of, was really funny, and he's very eccentric, like, "Hey Morty."
Yeah, and they also play on it where he's like a really bad alcoholic.
Yes, because he's got like a kid, like a.
Yeah, he's constantly drinking and then burping.
Burping, yeah. Which I was kind of surprised to see in an anime show, but this is kind of in the Adult Swim.
Yeah, this is cartoon
adults. Well, and which
cartoons for grown-ups.
Yes, exactly. So he's drinking, and we see him. Rick is going into
humanity.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, that's kind of. Is this sort of like so? I guess with this show, does it already kind of assume like it doesn't really have an intro where it's like, "Hi, I'm Rick. Hi, I'm Morty."
No, this is how they're introducing Rick. It's just sort of like a crazy mad
scientist. Got it. So he takes them into a dimension, right?
Yeah, I guess you sort of like they sort of do that, and they sort of the whole crux is that Morty is too tired, from all these crazy adventures.
Yeah. Okay, but Rick is like, "Come on, you need to stay awake and
help me
out. I have to take all this."
He has to get these seeds
that he wants, and there's these giant, like, big seeds,
right?
And I felt like I liked the seeds, and I mean I liked the animation of it. It was it's drawn real crude.
It has it's very crude. It has a lot of good physical humor, and then sort of gross out with all the burping.
It kind of reminds me of, but it's not as close up as if you watch Ren and Stimpy. You know, Ren and Stimpy kind of like will have like close ups of like baggy eyes or like snot in the nose.
Right.
I mean, it's gross, but it's not. It's kind of, I would say it's very strangely drawn.
Right.
So.
Yeah, this one has a lot of people are just sort of like they'll just sort of go cross-eyed.
They've kind of got cross-eyed. They've got big eyes
and like just start drooling.
And so I guess we'll get kind of through the plot first before.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
So he goes to this dimension,
right?
And they get the
mega seeds?
Mega seeds, right? Mega seeds, and they.
So Rick normally has like this portal gun he can use to travel around different dimensions.
So he doesn't have a time machine. He's got a portal gun.
He's got a portal gun this time.
Okay, so that's kind of interesting. That's interesting. So he goes to different dimensions, not really the different time.
Right.
Does he travel through time and the season goes on?
I think so. Yeah, probably. Yeah, they sort of do pretty much every sci-fi trope.
Okay, because it did kind of remind me a little bit like Futurama.
Yeah.
Kind of. Well, the animation a little bit too. So he goes into different dimensions.
Right.
And then we cut back to
the real world.
And poor Marty is kind of in high school. He is pretty much there's a bully,
right,
that picks on him. Okay, what's his name?
Frank.
Frank,
I think so.
And he basically, and he has his Jennifer, because I do kind of see like it is sort of the Biff McFly, kind of putting, there's the Jennifer, what's her name?
Yeah, like I think Jennifer's the girl Morty has a crush on.
Is her name Jennifer?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. And so Jennifer is kind of Morty has a crush, right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of interested in sort of the show because it's kind of zany.
Yeah, it's sort of incredibly zany. Yeah.
And going back to Jennifer, I felt like Jennifer kind of in Back to the Future, that's Marty's girlfriend.
Okay.
But it's played out more of like how his dad, George McFly, can't really talk to girls. So that kind of he has self-confidence.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Things. So Morty. I keep thinking Marty.
It was close.
It is close. So Morty goes to school and he has a teacher who's teaching him algebra.
Yeah, it's math class. Yeah.
Math class, and Marty can't keep his eyes open. Right. And what I kind of liked about it was and you can tell that he's having trouble in school. So in this episode, his parents, or he's got like you go ahead.
Yeah. So we sort of find out, sort of like as it cuts back and Morty and Rick are off on their adventure, that Rick has been lying to the school's been calling their house, and then Rick's, been intercepting the calls. Like,
Okay.
The parents don't know, like, Morty's only been at school, they say 7 hours for the past month.
Oh, so he's been playing hooky?
Yeah.
Which is kind of the same way Back to the Future, because
Gotcha.
if you remember Back to the Future, there's a scene where she's walking and is like, Strickland's going to find you. And he says, that's tardy number 3 for you, Jennifer, and this is tardy number 8 or something. And he says, get it through your thick skin. No McFly has ever made it in the history of Hill, made it great in the history of Hill Valley. So, and he says something like, well, yeah, history's going to change. Gotcha. So there's a lot, I guess there's a lot of parodies to Rick and Morty. I think the Honest Trailers guys did a video on the Back to the Future trilogy, and they said Doc and Marty's Excellent Adventure.
Oh yeah.
So that it's kind of that, but and then that made Rick and Marty. So anyway, Marty goes back to school, goes home, and his parents are ticked that her father
yeah, because Rick is her father,
has been hanging out with her grandson, which I can understand it, because if you think about going back to, because this says Back to the Future, doesn't seem it kind of creepy that a crazy old man is hanging out with a teenager.
Yeah, I don't think it's creepy. They're just because like he's not been going to school. Is what they're mad about.
No, but like in Back to the Future, the kind of it's something that I've kind of like read and like in zits in like stuff before, and
gotcha.
Isn't this kind of odd? But I liked what they did with this, kind of that connection, so it doesn't. And Marty and Rick is a little bit more. He's always kind of has that fear in him. I've noted, like, or
you talking about Morty or
Morty?
Yeah,
I'm getting them mixed up. Keep going.
Oh, you say So Rick sort of drags Morty around to like these sort of crazy situations, and Morty's normally terrified
of everything. And so Morty goes into the so they go into like 3 different dimensions in this episode.
I can't remember the exact number, but Rick sort of drags him around, and then like
what's the first dimension?
I don't know, I can't remember. They're sort of like just random. They don't really show up later.
There's not.
They normally have like some like C95 or 4. It's like a random string of letters.
Okay.
It's not like
a. When you saw this for the first time, were you pretty much like, this is weird, or were you?
I thought it was pretty funny.
I mean, I thought it was. I really laughed. I mean, I kind of, it's one of those shows that I kind of know of but never watched.
Right.
It's one of those shows that it's like, okay, so I'm going to make it on my list, and we're finally getting to it.
Right. Yeah.
I just wish I would have took notes. So.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of one of those where like it sort of has like an episodic nature to it, like throughout the whole thing, but it's not super strong.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's more like the gags.
It's more of gags. I think that it really bring, and I've noticed it's a cult. It's got its own cult following, not cult following, but the fandom. Let's just say.
Okay. Yeah.
But so they go into the dimension where there's like, was it the Slack?
There's just a bunch of like random alien things.
No, there's like an Men in Black.
Oh yeah. So like they're trying to take the normal like transport
back to their home dimension.
Right.
And it's kind of, and I like that Men in Black kind of like, they have this, if you remember Men in Black, they had the that big screen, and I was kind of surprised they didn't have Florian and Bob. Remember those octal aliens that were?
They did have one of the like a guy that looked like a lot like people from Star Trek. Is the Ferngully? Who are like
the Fringy?
The Fringy,
yeah.
Yeah, not the Ferngullies are the fairies.
Ferngullies the fairies, right. The Fringy, yeah.
Fringy, yeah.
And I liked how Rick is so manic. Or Morty, the doctor.
Oh yeah.
He's
Rick.
So manic.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a pretty good first viewer,
right.
I thought it was a pretty good
No, I agree.
episode. I mean, I'm intrigued to kind of binge at least 3 or 4 episodes and get into I don't know if I'll probably get into it, but it's like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do like a complete 8-episode podcast.
Right. No, there's a lot.
I mean, there's like what 8-10 seasons somewhere around that.
I think
seasons?
like 7 maybe.
7.
Which is a lot to.
So they go into the forest. They leave the Men in Black
right
train station.
Right.
And they head.
I guess from there they teleport back to Earth.
They teleport back to Earth.
Right.
And on their way back to Earth, they teleport back to Earth. And on their way back to Earth, when they get back to Earth,
the parents confront them.
The parent confronts.
They're kicking Rick out of the house.
Kicking who?
Right.
Kicking who? Rick?
Yeah, Rick out of
the house
to a nursing home. Yeah,
to a nursing home, and Rick is like, "No, I don't need to go to a nursing home."
And then he starts asking Morty these like questions, like, "What's the square root of pi?"
I've been teaching he says, "I've been teaching him what's the square root of pi," and he's like, and then he kind of gets into trance and goes, "It is
1.72, yeah, something like that."
And he's like, "What's this?" And he gets into a trance. And I thought the comedy in this show is really, I think, really works. It is that kind of Ren and Stimpy humor, but not as it's manic, but it's not as gross. I mean, it's gross, but
it's not as manic as Ren and Stimpy. But I guess
it's gross, but it's not as like. Really, it doesn't visually gross.
Yeah, it's like content can be pretty gross, but yeah, it's not as like the sort of like it's not as strange as Ren and Stimpy or something like that. Yeah. With the what's the powdered milk?
Yeah.
So many
words. Or the God, what was that scene in Ren and Stimpy? It was like Toast Man.
Yeah, Toast Man. Yeah, there's strangeness,
but I mean it's strange, but it works and I feel like it's one of those shows where I'm kind of digging it. And I'll probably want to watch this first episode again to really kind of, digest it a little bit more or digest the series. But I was digging it. I guess so. The parents come in,
right, and then they see like after Morty does a little trance thing and sort of spits out facts. They're like, okay.
Oh yeah, he says.
Yeah, okay, it's fine if you keep,
Yeah, hang out with. Well,
right.
I mean, like hang out. You can hang out with Grandpa. Can hang out with my grandson.
And then the Grandpa's like, you've got to hang out with me forever.
Yes, and I like him. I like Rick because he's so. There's something manic about him, but he's also sort of I would say. Not cunning, but in your face.
He's like.
He's kind of.
He's like sort of cunning and ruthless.
And
like sort of. He's sort of like a sociopath.
A sociopath, but in a good way.
Maybe
not a good way, but in a fun way.
Yeah,
let's just say.
Funny
way.
Yeah.
So, I guess so he can hang out with his grandson,
right?
And
the episode sort of ends with him just sort of babbling over and over again that Rick and Morty forever.
I like this show. I'll watch. I want to. I feel like it's not as episodic as something like, where I felt like, if I miss this episode, I'll have to go back.
Right.
I can kind of. It's kind of like The Simpsons, where I can jump in.
Sort of, it is. There is some episodic nature, but it's not super strong.
Well, I mean, like if you look at The Simpsons, there's like episodes where like the one where Maud Flanders dies,
right,
and they make it into a complete they kill her off to the point.
Yeah, so it's a bit more episodic than The Simpsons, but it's not very. It's like a lot more adventure.
You can jump in.
You can jump in.
Yeah. So that is Jay, did you get hooked on it kind of like right then and there, or did you have to kind of let you have 4 or 5 episodes before it started to?
No, I really enjoyed it after the first one, but
does it get more zanier as the first season, or are they trying? Do they? Try
I think it stays pretty zany, but then they try to add a lot more character depth
in like season 2 and stuff, or season 1.
Yeah, but it stays pretty zany throughout the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was our look at the pilot episode for Rick. Well, hold on. I guess what I'd say is I'm digging it. I kind of want to get more just to see kind of
right.
But I think it looks like one of those shows that I can see where the cult following is.
Right.
So that was our look at Rick and Morty. My name is STEVEO coming at you, and
Jay,
and we'll be back hopefully
John
with
Wick.
John Wick Chapter 4, the fourth wickening.
What's the actual title of?
Chapter 4.
Is it just okay?
Chapter 3, I think, was the only one that had like.
Okay, that's what it's throwing. Yeah, one of them had like a special name. Okay.
But anyway. Bye, and as always, like and subscribe. And if there's anything else you would like us to cover, please let us know in the comments below. Peace.